The first sequel to Jurassic Park, The Lost World, is less comprehensive and concise, yet contains many fascinating ideas. In Jurassic Park, we saw the duality of Alan, the paleontologist, and the chaos expert. So there the question was the relationship between ancient creatures and the chaos. In The Lost World, one of the main characters is the chaos expert. Alongside him appears the representative of nature. How does chaos theory connect to Jurassic Park? And what is its relationship to the social changes presented with symbols in The Lost World? In Jurassic Park, Alan Grant, the paleontologist, and Ian Malcolm, the chaos expert, attempt to access the park's safety. Alan knows the creatures, their strength, and their dangers. He is the counterpoint to the elderly entrepreneur and his team's ignorance, therefore emphasizing it. They don't actually know what forces they are playing with. Ian, the chaos expert, demonstrates that such a complex system cannot be safely kept within limits, at least not at the level they build there. Due to the system's complexity and the elemental forces of its components, it begins to function as a chaotic system, and thus, based on the butterfly effect, a small change can amplify into destructive, even life-threatening events. The chaos expert does emphasize the team's irresponsibility. This layer of the movie then draws attention to scientific irresponsibility and corporate greed. They don't know what they are tampering with, and they don't care enough about the possible consequences. The motivations differ. In the case of science, there is curiosity, but also the production of results that can be get as quickly as possible. In the case of corporations, however, the intention is simply greed, to get as much money as quickly as possible without caring about the later consequences. Both, however, potentially endanger the entire world. The worst, however, is when science serves corporate greed. In The Lost World, a scientist facilitates the capture of animals. According to the movie's symbols, this should be considered a biblical original sin. Moreover, what he thinks he knows, while making him feel safer, can ultimately lead to his downfall. Systems theory and its related disciplines study systems composed of interconnected components within an environment. Here, the primary topics are structures and patterns formed from components and states of equilibrium. External or internal events can result in changes to other components and thus ultimately the transformation of the entire system. In certain systems, the functioning of the whole is more than the sum of the functioning of individual parts, which is called emergent behavior. Here, individual components on their own don't explain collective phenomena. These arise from interactions that can create new patterns, functions, or regulatory characteristics. In emergent dynamics, stability and change often stem from the network of connections, not from the properties of individual components. The changes of systems can be extremely sensitive to initial conditions. This means that even quite tiny starting differences can amplify into dramatic divergences. This is often called the butterfly effect. Over the long term, in these systems, unpredictable, seemingly disordered behavior may emerge. Chaos theory shows that certain systems are naturally unstable and follow continuously nonlinear, often unpredictable developmental trajectories. The essence of nonlinear feedback is that small deviations can trigger significant changes, while large interventions sometimes barely produce noticeable effects. As a result, a complex system can become unstable or difficult to control. Regulation is not merely a matter of stronger control, but understanding how different processes in the system can distort or amplify each other. In certain systems, attractors can appear. These are states toward which a dynamic system tends in the long term, regardless of exactly where it started. These points of attraction can be simple, for example, a fixed point or periodic cycle, but they can also be extremely complex, such as so-called strange attractors. In the case of attractors, a system's behavior organizes into patterns, even in seemingly disordered circumstances.
You've heard of chaos theory?
No.
No? Nonlinear equations? Strange attractors? Dr. Sadler, I refuse to believe that you aren't familiar with the concept of attraction.
Important concepts are self-organization and the edge of chaos, though these come from complexity theory. Even in seemingly chaotic systems, stable patterns can emerge. This is the domain where the system is flexible enough to respond quickly to changes, yet doesn't fall apart into complete disorder. Adaptive systems often operate in this dynamic equilibrium space, neither static nor uncontrollable. At the edge of chaos, a complex system can be simultaneously stable and adaptive. Cybernetics deals with the control, regulation, and communication of systems. It examines how systems maintain stability in a constantly changing environment. Feedbacks play a key role. Negative feedback ensures the system's balance by dampening disturbances. Positive feedback, in certain cases, through its amplifying effect, can drive the system toward new states. Maintaining the system state within given parameters and thus its survival despite external changes is called homeostasis. The system must adapt to changes. It must respond by transforming its structure and operations if it wants to maintain or improve its quality. The system, therefore, must not only be stable but also dynamically change to remain viable over the long term. Based on the principle of requisite variety described by Ashby, a system can only effectively manage changes in its environment if its internal variety is at least as great as the external variety acting upon it. In other words, only variety can absorb variety. Overly rigid, poorly diverse systems can easily become unstable in a complex, rapidly changing environment, while with adequate flexibility are able to maintain homeostasis. How does all this connect to the Jurassic Park story? To maintain a system's functioning, we need a regulator. However, the regulation must be sufficiently powerful and, most importantly, intelligent. It must have requisite variety to be capable of maintaining homeostasis. Otherwise, in the case of complex, nonlinear systems, chaos can break out and become destructive. In Jurassic Park, the word park itself indicates that they attempted to create an ordered and regulated environment, a system. However, due to their ignorance and the accompanying irresponsibility, they couldn't control it at the appropriate level. They didn't have the requisite variety that the complex system required. Thus, forces far exceeding the human scale broke loose and became destructive. In the Lost World movie, however, we see that the dinosaurs formed an ecosystem on their own. That is, the edge of chaos emerged in their natural environment. In other words, Nature itself functioned as a regulator through natural coexistence. This, however, was disrupted by the arrival of hunters, wanting to collect the creatures in hopes of material gain, and chaos reigned once again. In the movie series, the focus slowly moves forwards, so it's no coincidence that the franchise was later renamed from Jurassic Park, which referred to a controlled environment in the first trilogy, to Jurassic World. The ordered or chaotic system of dinosaurs is just one layer. The story of the first movie can be well interpreted as a symbolic representation of Alan and Elvis' life situation. Should a closer relationship, maybe with the children, mean a total change of work and life? In The Lost World, we see a modern family and a wide spectrum of reactions for the unstoppable changes. The next part discusses the social philosophical layer of the movie, the clash between traditionalism and modernity, which can also be interpreted with the help of chaos theory and cybernetics.